This is Lee with Crashtesthobby, showing you how to build the tail for the Storm Chaser. You need to keep the tail light to get the best performance. I'm going to show you both a glue hinge and also a laminate hinge. The glue hinge is much lighter. We're going to start by installing a carbon spar back 4 3/4 inches from the front of the horizontal stab. You're going to take a sharp razor blade and cut a slit into which you will put the carbon spar. The difference between a sharp razor blade and a dull one is how clean the cut is. You're going to want to lightly sand the spar so the glue sticks to it, and then press it into the slot. Making sure it doesn't poke out either the top or the bottom. Put a little baking soda along the line, which will act as a catalyst so the glue both will stick better to the spar and also so that it sets the CH glue faster. Make sure you get the excess off or it will make hard lumps that you can't get off the foam. Now the tail is a lot lighter if you don't laminate it, and every ounce you add at the tail of the plane ends up to being about 3 ounces you have to add at the front of the plane. So the lightest way to build a tail is not to laminate it, and you can either pin the surfaces to a piece of cardboard, which is probably a little easier than this, or pin the pieces together and then put a very thin layer of goop glue or of a quick grip glue along the seam, and then spread it very thinly. If it's too thick, the surface will be stiff and it won't move easily. You want it to come out about a 1/2 inch from the hinge line, and then let it dry. And you can see how it sits from all angles. Now you're going to do the same process for the vertical and the rudder in order to make a glue hinge. Now we trim also off the back corner of the rudder so it won't interfere with the elevator, and I'll show you that in a minute. Once you've put the glue down, don't go back and try touching it up later. It tends to roll the glue up and make a rough surface that you cannot fix. So once you've got it set and smooth, leave it alone. I'm adding a few pins so it doesn't shift while it's curing. Now if I'm going to laminate the elevator, I lay out the laminate and then iron the laminate down with a temperature of about 190 to 200 degrees. And then wrap it around the edges and seal it down. I've shown you this on the fuselage build, and I don't want to spend a great deal of time showing the laminating process. The elevator, being a small piece, is more sensitive to heat. You don't want your iron too hot or you will end up changing the shape or warping the elevator. So after rolling it up, I run the iron down it and seal all the layers of the rolled laminate at once. And then taking a pair of scissors, just trim it and then seal the edges down. Using a pair of scissors, I will then trim the ends so that I can wrap the ends. It's the same kind of process on the other surfaces, that just open it up and iron the pieces around so they overlap. The laminate sticks real well to itself. Haven't had any trouble with this coming apart. Now I need some 1-inch wide tape in order to seal down, to make the hinge on the elevator and on the rudder. So I only have 2-inch tape, so I use a sharp razor blade and make some 1-inch wide strips. And then placing the tape at the hinge line, I line it up and touch it down. Tape's really sticky to the laminate, so it sticks real well. And you can see how well that hinge line moves. Now I'm going to flip it over and put a piece along the bottom. This keeps it from pulling apart and coming undone. We do the same thing on combat wings, and it is very secure. But once again, you don't want to add any more weight to the tail of the plane than you have to, because you will have to compensate for that with weight in the nose of the plane. Now, the extreme tape is very sensitive to UV light. Usually takes it about 3 months to turn yellow and peel off if you do not put laminate over it. But the laminate is such a good shield that I have planes that are nearly 10 years old where the E-tape looks like it's brand new once it's sealed under a layer of laminate. Your iron, once again, should be around 200 degrees. You don't want it to where water boils on it, but that it steams if you don't have a thermometer. And then once again, doing both bottom and top and sealing that hinge line tape into a protective seal. Then flex the elevator down and iron along the hinge line to relax the hinge line. Now you can go back and trim the back part of the rudder off, and this angle is so the elevator can go up and down and not interfere with the rudder, or the rudder interfere with the elevator. And you're going to do the exact same process as done with the horizontal. And once again, put backside extreme tape on it. What's nice is the fibers are crossing the hinge line with the bidirectional tape, and it makes an almost indestructible hinge line. And then iron the laminate in place. It really doesn't take too long to do this setup once you're used to how to do it. And then of course trim it, and then we'll do the other side. And you notice how it wants to flex up? That will go away as soon as I run the iron on it and flex it and iron it again. You notice it started laying flat as soon as I had the iron on it. Now is a good time before you glue the tail surfaces on to add color to the tail. So whether you're spray painting or whether you're adding colored tape like I'm showing here, it's a good time just to add some strips. It only takes a few minutes to put tape on like you're seeing. Now I'm putting some center marks so that I know exactly where the center is to line up the horizontal, and drawing it on the bottom of the horizontal tail surface. I'm now going to cut the laminate out, so I'm gluing to foam, not gluing to laminate. But I don't want to cut into the foam or weaken the spar, so I'm just barely cutting deep enough to divide the laminate. So now I'll apply some glue and glue the tail in place. I want to make sure that the tail is square with the fuselage and also level with the table. I've seen before where a tail can be shifted and not square, so just make sure that it sits square. Now to install the rudder, mark out how long it's going to be. Then I take a straight edge and a soldering iron and I punch a series of holes through the laminate where glue will go in order to glue the rudder onto the back of the plane. Then with the glue gun I work glue into the line. And I put a very small layer here just so that it seals down well, and press it into place. Once again, don't add too much weight to the tail of the airplane. But I am a bit of a fanatic on not having the rudder come off, so you'll see me put just a tiny smear of glue, a bead of glue along both edge here, just to make sure that it's secure. And then make sure that the tail is square with the fuselage while the glue cools and sets. Thank you for watching. This is Lee with Crash Test Hobby.